I met a few months back, and this was our conversation. We couldn't stop talking about sex of the older women. She had to remind me what it was, of course, because it's been a while for me. But before we launch into that, I really want to give a big shout out to Francesca Cassini, who birthed this wonderful TV and who is so much part of the relaunch of the Silver TV, giving us all an incredible opportunity. Just an amazing vision from Francesca. So my name's Gwen. I am in my 60s, and I have a background in counseling, working with families, trained in Tantra, shamanic practices. I'm a celebrant, run workshops, and I'm just a very curious woman, really. And I'm particularly curious about sex and the older woman. I'd like to introduce Diane. Diane, I'm going to read what you wrote about yourself, and then I'll hand it over to you to expand on that and let me know why you're here on the panel today, which I have to say thank you, because it takes courage, and I really appreciate you being here. You and Sunday. We seem to have lost Sunday. Oh, there you're back. So Diane is a change and transition doula, walking alongside people as they journey on their life's path, assisting them to overcome blocks, providing information for them from other realms, drawing on ancient wisdom from past lives and the ancestors, helping to ease people on their journeys, whether they are incarnate, discarnate, or passing over, enabling them to fully unfold to live the life they are truly meant to live. Thank you, Diane.
Thanks, Gwen. Yeah, I actually only got those words yesterday. Literally, I woke up and that was what Spirit delivered to me. So that was really nice. So yeah, just to add a little bit more to that. So my work is called The Heart of Joy, and that's about the 5 fields of being. And those are being on purpose, being with emotions, being playful, being prayerful, and being love. So playing in all these fields for me means that we're living a fully embodied life. So part of my interest in today's topic is that I feel it's an important aspect of life and living, and has elements in all of those 5 fields of being. So for me, it's, really fundamental, like many other fundamentals of our lives, and it flows across all of those areas. And but also, just being a 64-year-old woman who's lived a life so far and hope to live for many more years yet, and being around, and I've first opened up to well, got curious about boys when I was in my junior school years, and my first boyfriend sort of when I was about 10, which was all very sweet and innocent and chatting about very serious topics, as you do at age 10. You know what it's like. And we also, in our class, there was a group of girls, we had the Facts of Life Club, which was terribly serious. And my friend made the official membership cards, and we used to talk about these very serious topics, like, the fact that her sister used to use these things called tampons that, they used to go to the chemist for, and she didn't really know quite what they were all about. So that was kind of the sort of innocent age of, not quite knowing what it's all about, but kind of knowing there's something out there to, to explore. And then in my teens, kind of self-pleasure and boyfriends really came in my teens, and yeah, I've been through many relationships. So, but I also think it's something that so many people, particularly women, seem to give up on. And I think that's really sad, because to me, it's like, kind of gorgeous and juicy. And there's, it's really nice to have fun. And I think a lot of women, if they allow themselves, can really discover a lot about sex and themselves and pleasure in all its good forms. So yeah, there you go. I'll stop talking now.
you. And thank you for taking us back to when we were when we were. You brought back lots of memories there for me.
You did for me too, Diane. That was lovely. Yeah, and I think we're going to come back to this point about giving up on sex, because I think it's a really valid one, and one we can talk about a lot. So I'll take it from here for a moment. So I'll just introduce myself. My name is Melanie Knight. I am trained as a sexological body worker, which you might not know the term, but basically it's body work and sex coaching and everything rolled into one. I've also done a lot of Tantra, and most of my work is very tantric principle based. And I will love working with women, and you know, I turned 50 just over a year ago. I'll be 52 this year. And went into menopause last year as well. And so for me, there's a lot of changes around my body and what I wanted. I left a relationship that wasn't working, where the sex had died. And I didn't want that to happen. My partner was happy with it and I wasn't. And I'm now in a beautiful tantric relationship, and making love lots and lots and lots, and having lots of fun and really enjoying that. So, and now really passionate about teaching other women this sort of stuff. So I'm going to leave it there for now, and I'll introduce Sunday. So you are a estrangement and relationship coach who loves to talk about tough things, the good place to be today, and find connection through the differences. And your dream is a community with space for lots of connections and differences. So maybe if you want to add to that and say a bit about why you're here today.
Yeah, why am I here today? Well, it's a tough topic, so that's probably, and I have that sort of, okay, let's do the difficult stuff. I have that very much as part of my personality. And yeah, I'm in my 60s and I've got stories to tell around my own sexuality and where I'm at now with it. And I think it is a subject because there's this myth that I kind of sort of like have hovering around, that once you pass a certain age, it's either too difficult, too painful, all that sort of, that we're invisible, that we're sort of sexless. And I've had some really good conversations, which I'll talk about a bit later on, with some younger people around this. I was brave enough to ask whether a young man found me, I'm talking about it now, aren't I, found me attractive as an older woman, because my assumption would be that he wouldn't. And it was interesting having this conversation with different generations listening. It was tough. But I'm here because I like to talk about things that probably get sort of pushed aside, and people perhaps avidly want to know about it, but find it very difficult to talk about. Death being another one, money probably being another, but sex, I think, is really important. Like Diane says, it's like it runs through so many themes in our aspects of our life, my life. So yeah, that's why I'm here today. And just to talk a little bit about me and the work that I do, estrangement. And it was interesting because you asked the question, what is that? And estrangement is, well, adult-child estrangement is something that seems to be growing exponentially as adult children are rejecting, cutting off from families as well as parents. And so that is the work that I do, work with the parents who've been estranged by their adult children. And that's been born from my own experience, and also my coaching background just sort of eased me down that path. It's been very unusual. It's not something I had on my to-do list. It's something that I feel I've been called to do. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you, Sunday, for that.
I really want to hear what they said, these young
Yeah.
What did you say?
The boy, the person you were talking to about whether you were attractive or not. What did he say?
He said he raised his eyebrows and said yes.
Oh,
and
that's
I sort of,
lovely.
I didn't know whether he was being polite or, because I was saying, you know, my assumption is that young men like you would not find a woman of my age attractive, sexually attractive. And I said, I don't know whether you do or you don't. And he was affirming, he wasn't rejecting. And I don't know whether that was his truth, because if I'd have come on to him, you know, talk about these, what we call these women who go after cougars. I'm not a cougar. But it's interesting. I don't know if this is where you want to go, but I noticed today, particularly, I put a dress on. I haven't worn a dress for ages. And I thought, where is my sexuality as I wear this dress? How am I walking? How am I showing myself? Am I visible or am I hiding? And that, for me, most of the time, I am not in that space. I'm not walking in my sexuality. And it's something maybe that I want to remind myself to do.
Might I ask you, did you, when you were younger, is there a difference between the age you are now and how you walk and how you did it when you were younger, how you dressed and walked?
Yeah. It's interesting. I was raised on a farm. I did lots of boy-man jobs. The incongruence of wearing work clothes during the day and then going out in a dress and all that, a huge transition. I was confused about my femininity for a long time. And then I developed these beautiful things on the front of me, and I was stunned at how much attention they drew. And I was horrified as well. People used to throw peanuts. I used to wear low tops when I was 16. I remember my sister saying to my mum, Sunday's boobs won't grow any bigger, will they, Mum? I don't know whether she was slightly envious or what, and I was a lot younger than her, so she was probably watching out for me. But yeah, as a younger woman, I was aware that I could draw attention, traction, and I had that love-hate thing that I think many of us do. And I think that probably is still the same today. But now if I get a wolf whistle, if ever I do, and it's very rare, and I'm sad that they've gone, because on one level they were really affirming. I mean, they were a bit intrusive, but you know, now I'm happily to look round and think, was that for me?
This really brings up for me about the wild, sassy, sexy woman that used to strut her stuff. And because I'm older, somehow, and it's what you're saying, Sunday, you know, suddenly it's like I have this program that says you can't do that anymore, you know, because you're no longer sexy, you're no longer young, you know, you've got flabby skin, your tits have dropped down to your belly button, you know, why would you do that and make such a fool of yourself? But I do also notice that after I was with Melanie the other day and we were having all these conversations about sex, and I have to add toys, sex toys as well.
Yeah, we were talking about sex toys.
We were talking about sex toys, and she talked about this sucky sex toy, and I immediately felt like I was orgasm. Anyway, all the way home,
she only had to think about it. It was so funny.
I did think about it, and I was like, "Whoa!" But I must have still been exuding that energy. So all the way home on the bus, men were giving me a look, and so having got the look, I felt good, you know. And I like to pride myself on, it's not the external factors that matter, it's the internal. But getting those looks and having a wink and a side glance made me feel so good and sexy and womanly and sensual again. So
it was beautiful. But I think this also comes back to what Diane was saying about it's a being as well, because you know, when we talked about the sex toys, we didn't actually do anything, but then it was that being that you went home with that actually was lighting up, you know, and you got that reflected back. But it was, to me, this is, you know, when we come from pleasure and connected to our own sexuality, we have a very different being that lights up rooms that you know, that often we lose because of a lot of the stuff we've just been talking about.
So Diane, come back to you as well. Do you think, you know, you walk with people through life and you talked about the juiciness, you know, what describe a bit of that juiciness as an older woman? Can you give us a little bit of a insight into your juiciness? I'm living vicariously here now, by the way.
That's cool. Yeah, well, I think we all do that sometimes, don't we? You know, it's good to hear stories from other people. Yeah, actually, what I'm being taken back to was after I split up with my son's father. It was actually a bit younger than the tent group, if you like, because I was just before my 40th. It was in the year of my 40th birthday. And I went on this huge kind of who am I, what happened, what's that all about, what's life all about stuff. And I started to kind of explore things and connecting with places and people. And interestingly, before we started this, you mentioned Osho Leela, Melanie, and that's a place that I did go back in the early 2000s, because I'd met someone in the 90s who was a follower of Osho, and you know, I went there and there was some great stuff there, just in terms of some people and kind of how they were and their being and being free. But one of the things I found when I moved from Scotland down to London, and when I made that move, I started going dancing, and that was fantastic, because that was a real reconnect with my physicality, and because I've always loved to dance, and that was one of the things I'd kind of stopped doing a lot of the time when I was married. And so it was really interesting, and discovering all these blokes, you know, there's lots of these really cool guys, you know, and I could dance with them, and it was really good fun. And you know, we were doing salsa dancing, so there was this kind of, there's something about moving and kind of feeling inside and actually going, yeah, actually I am, you know, kind of juicy here, you know, it's
See that.
you know,
You, Diane.
yeah. And but it's open to everybody, that's the thing, you know. But I think so many women, particularly of my generation or older, were taught that that's not right.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
you know, it's, you know, you're not a good girl,
Absolutely.
you know, I mean, you know, and all sorts of crap goes on top. So I was very grateful that in a lot of ways I was a bit of a rebel. So, you know, finding masturbation when I was in my teens was nice, you know, because it was like, you know, yeah, because it was a great way, because like most women, I do a lot of sex in my head, you know, because that's, you know, well known that that's what we do, isn't it? And so, you know, I could imagine the boyfriend who I had at the time, who I wasn't necessarily doing all these things with, but, you know, kind of imagining things, you know, and that was cool. That was really good fun. So yeah, and discovering orgasm, you know, that was, yeah, because that is amazing. And, you know, it's still fun now, and hopefully for many years to come.
So what is your take on pleasure, Diane? What comes to mind if we start to talk about desire and pleasure?
Yeah, well, that could be all sorts of things. I'm very tactile, so I love touch and cuddles and kissing. A good snog, can't beat a good snog. Haven't had one of those for a while now, because I haven't had a partner for a while. So, you know, that's kind of, damn it, yes, you know, but a guy who can kiss well is always a plus in my book. And from that, you know, you can get into the play stuff, you know, so things like, you know, eating fruit together, you know, and how sexy that can be. God, that can be sexy. There was a guy that I was involved with for a while back, back in the early 2000s now, and he was a lovely chap. He came from Lebanon, is where he's from, and he was very into physicality and stuff, you know, and we had a lot of fun playing with fruit and things, you know. Yeah, it's cool. It's good stuff. So yeah, so pleasure can be all sorts of things, but it doesn't have to be full-on sex, and that's what, you know, where people sort of, I think, sometimes get a bit stuck or muddled or uncertain or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to add that, Diane, because I think a lot of people I work with, it's very often, when you talk about pleasure, it's very often attributed to the sex act or the orgasm. And when you talk about pleasure, there's a world of pleasure, you know, with your body, just with touch, with caresses, with play, with fun, you know. And I think you know, expanding our definition of what is pleasure for a lot of people, you know, into what some of the stuff you're talking about is really beautiful for a lot of people, and as something new, because we haven't been taught a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And people are scared, I think, sometimes just to explore. It's like, should I be doing this? Oh, I'm not sure. Oh, it's a bit naughty. Am I allowed to be naughty? Well, yeah, go be naughty. That's all I say. Everybody, be naughty. You know, it's good fun.
Don't have fun from Diane, no.
I love being naughty too. That's
I can tell. I can tell.
But in saying that, I mean, I love to be naughty, but there's also the other part where I've felt like I've held myself back a lot in relationships because of fear of rejection from partners, thinking I was weird, or, you know, that they wouldn't want what I wanted. So I think there's also that as well, sometimes fear about, you know, can we explore new things? What, you know, will I be accepted if I want to do that?
Yeah.
I think for me, what's coming up for me is something around desire, you know, being, I've got a partner, I've got a husband, and it's a little bit different at the moment. We haven't got that in our lives, and I miss being desired and wanted and actually being lusted after, which sounds bizarre because, you know, there was times when I didn't want that, you know, I didn't want somebody going, oh, come here, let me squeeze you, let me, oh, come here, you know, that sort of, I have a playful approach, I think, to sex, and you know, and at this point I want to honor the men, because actually for me, you know, as a younger woman, I was absolutely in the dark. I had no idea. And when the first time that my then husband did certain things, I always thought, my bloody hell, what's going on here then? All I'd watched was, well, I'd seen mum and dad, but not in that sense, but lots of animals, you know, being on a farm. It was like, and I'll tell you what shocked me the most, because when I was at school young, I heard the word F-U-C-K, I won't say it properly on here. And then when somebody said to me that that was the slang name for the sex act, I was shocked, and I probably would be about 9, 10, because to me, and God knows where I got this from, the sex act for me was something that was sort of honorable, sacred, and I'm so glad. I don't know where that came from, but I'm so glad I had that in my knowing, because that word for me was offensive and didn't actually describe the act of that at all for me. So so going back to this honoring the men and being tuned into desire, and my concern that I might not be desired ever again is a bit of a thing for me. Anyway, I did we do talk about it, and I did go off and have a tantric massage a couple of years ago, and I didn't quite know what I was letting myself in for. You're
very brave, Sunday.
Well, life's for living, isn't it?
It is, definitely. I love it.
If there's something that's slightly scary, I'm going to be the one that says, oh, I'll give it a go. So I toddled off, and I had the most wonderful experience with this beautiful man who was so in his whole sacred energy, and had the most amazing massage, complete with intimate touching, but nothing that was within. It was sort of on the surface intimate touching, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I didn't have what I would call any sort of, or I think I was too tightened up to be truly in my pleasure. But it was pleasurable, but I didn't have what I know I can achieve in realms of orgasmic ecstasy either. And that's been so different throughout my life. And I tune into so many different orgasms now as a woman who kind of knows herself quite well. And even like I can do it to myself even without anything around and touching. Those celestial orgasms that are just like all over encompassing, that aren't genital based, and just recharging me at a cellular level, I believe.
It was beautiful.
We were talking about this the other day, because a bit like you, Sunday, I can do it with the breath. And again, you know, no touching, but it's just literally with the breath. And of course, having studied Tantra, then I can use the breath and raise the breath and take it up through the body. And like you say, it's like a full body orgasm, but it's totally different. It's completely and utterly different.
And I think it's worth saying to any of our viewers out there, just because they might not have heard of these different types of orgasms, I think there are, I haven't got a list in front of me, but I think there's something like 70 odd different types of orgasms that people have listed, like breast orgasm, laughing orgasm, vaginal orgasm, clitoral orgasm, the G-spot orgasm. And, you know, I think, you know, a lot of it is that people haven't been, again, coming back to, they're not taught, they're not aware of what is possible. Sunday, it sounds like you've had some incredible spiritual experiences that
and
you've been very fortunate.
Thank you. And going back to honouring the men, because I think they opened the portal, you know? So
I loved what you said about honouring men, because I think it's so easy, especially, you know, the older we get after maybe failed relationships and stuff, to become jaded about men and, you know, and angry and frustrated because we've had relationships fail or whatever. But I think it's really beautiful that you're talking about honouring men, because again, from the other side, men weren't taught how to honour women. And how to pleasure women, and a lot of what they know is from porn or from, you know, from sites on the internet and stuff. So I think that's really beautiful. And your experience of a tantric massage made me remember a beautiful one that was when I first met my partner. He became my partner, and on our third date he offered me a tantric massage, and I was in tears for most of it. Energy was running through me, but I was in tears because I'd come out of a sexless relationship where, you know, I hadn't been desired for a long time. I hadn't, you know, I'd been feeling very rejected in that relationship. And, you know, we were like friends. There was some love there, but there certainly wasn't, you know, that real profound love. And then I meet this man and he performs this tantric massage, and he's looking at me with desire and honoring me as a goddess and worshipping me and, you know, touching me with love and connection. And it was just blew my mind. And, you know, I just think this is where there is that healing with the masculine and feminine as well. So it's incredible what you shared.
I just want to add as well that obviously so many of us, I mean, I hold my hands up, I've had bad experiences with men as well. So overcoming those other types of sexual unions or abuse or whatever you want to call it is, you know, how many of us have actually managed to reclaim our sexuality as a result of those damaged times that we've had. You know, I was molested as a child, and to this day, I'm so grateful that I escaped. That could have been so much worse than it was. I was sexually molested. And for years I held that, and it stopped me from kissing. I didn't want to kiss anybody, and I'd be about 10 when this happened. And where all my teenage friends, when I got to be teenage years, that so closed me down to that exploration. And you know, there's other things that people have to deal with and recover from, and I guess some of us struggle to do that, and it cuts us off from the sexuality. And as you get older, I guess that, you know, I just want to acknowledge that there's the other side of it all, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, and that's why I do the work that I do, because so many of us have, you know, either had that sort of level of abuse in our past and rape and stuff like that. But even if you haven't, you know, many of us have had our boundaries crossed, of, you know, not said no when we didn't want sex, have said yes when we, you know, to go along with something. And I think this causes huge amounts of problems in our ability to be intimate in relationships, in, you know, what you've just shared. So again, it's really beautiful that you've managed to move past that.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of that is learning to fall back in love with yourself.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And, you know, that for me was key to healing all sorts of things, you know, and made a big difference. And then just deciding I was going to have fun. And then it was okay to have fun. Giving myself permission to do things I would have thought were outrageous when I was younger, I have to say. I became one of those women in her middle ages who was discovering all sorts of things that were just outrageous. Yeah, not as outrageous as many people I know, but, you know, still outrageous.
Yeah, I could probably list some outrageous things as well. But I think there was two things you said there, which is about loving yourself. And one of the prompts we have for our talk today was about loving, you know, what do we think about our bodies? Because I think bodies and our view of our bodies are very much about loving ourselves. So how do you feel about your body as an older woman? Anyone who wants to answer that?
Okay, I'll go. It keeps changing, the blooming thing.
It does.
I just get used to it being like it is, and then it bloody well changes again. Yeah, I have my days where I think, oh my goodness me, and then there's other days where I look at myself and I think, wow. And then there's other days where I don't even consider it. But I think for me, I think now as an older woman, I have a lot of gratitude towards it. And that in itself, I think, helps me to have empathy with it, because it's been through a lot. I've thrown it at things. I've allowed it to be used and abused. And I've been the one that sort of hammered it. I'm looking at myself. I've got my legs out and I'm looking at, you know, there's the scars of living on it. And I haven't worn a bra for about 4 years now. And I thought at first that everything would go south and it would lose. And actually, they've loved being out free. And I'm still coming to terms with being okay in the summer. Pattern tops are great. Anything that's tight and the same colour are just like, oh, no, can't go out in that. And it's strange, isn't it? You know, there's a part of me that really just wants to not. I want to be aware of my body, and I also want to be in it and just being with it rather than me thinking it's on show. And it's funny because like this attraction thing again, when I'm walking around and I'm not conscious and like oozing sexuality or whatever that may be. And like oozing sexuality or whatever that may be.
Sorry. Carry on.
And it's an interesting question, you know, like, do I love my body? Like, how do I feel about my body? And it's so varied on different days. And on the days, you know, sometimes I'll touch myself, stroke myself, put oil on, you know, really take the time to be with my body in that sense. And then other days I just forget about it. And don't put the right things in it. Sometimes there's a little voice that's going, Sunday, what are you putting that in your mouth for? And sometimes I'll just ignore it because that's the way I am. So I think on the whole, I love it, I appreciate it, I honour it. And there's times when it's something other than that.
That's lovely.
Yeah,
What about you, Diane?
I would. I
Gwen.
heard a lot. That really, I could relate a lot to that Sunday, and actually, it was very good for me to hear that. I have noticed this year that here, when I put my arm down, it's really wrinkly, and I really don't like it. It's like, of all the things that could have happened, and my legs. It's like when you do a downward dog, suddenly the skin that was at the top of your thighs is now down at your knees. You know, and you're like, what is happening? I'm beginning Darby dog, you know, well, those wrinkly dogs, and I don't like it. And it's only been this summer when I thought I can't wear something without sleeves because I really don't want to expose it. But then I think, hope Francesca doesn't approve of this now, but then I think, what would it be like having sex and I was on top? I don't think I could do that. I mean, going back to what you were saying, wild days, you know, I still have a whip, you know, we had so much fun. I don't even know if I could do that anymore because I think I have become so conscious of my wrinkles. And I always loved my skin. My skin was always so a beautiful skin, and now it's gone wrinkly, and I want to love it. You know, I want to appreciate it. I want to let go of the programming, because we live in a youth culture. We live in a glam culture. You know, we don't honor and really kind of respect the older look. And everything, all the advertising, everywhere you look and go, it's about how you can smell better, look younger, be wrinkle free. It's all about age, but not in a body positive way. I think this is something we have to have more conversations about.
Yeah.
It's not just about the educating, it's about talking about these things. It's about being willing to be vulnerable and intimate in our conversations as well. Yeah.
One of the things I was just thinking as you were talking that, Gwen, because for me, yes, wrinkles and stuff like that, my hands are starting to look like a wrinkly old woman's hands, and I'm like, oh my God, how did that happen? But for me, it's more than that. I think for me, it's also around changes in my body that's not working as they used to. Yeah. So I have a prolapse, which is constantly out of my body. I do have one of the pessary rings that I can fit. But when I was recently single 4 years ago, I was like, oh my God, you know, a man's going to look at me and think, what's this weird thing sticking out of my body? And so I was like, oh my God, you know, am I going to be attractive to a man anymore? And Gwen knows this, but don't think you guys know this. I've got arthritis and just had a total hip replacement, but I've suffered with arthritis for about 7 years. With you know, lots of big high levels of pain and limited mobility. So again, thinking about, you know, when I was thinking, can I get into a relationship again? I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have a man that's going to be understanding about my pain levels and ability. And would someone want to accept that? Would a man find me attractive with all of that stuff? You know, somehow I feel less than as a woman.
And this is a really important topic because we don't have the same agility. You know, our bodies don't perhaps move, and we have disabilities, like both you and I have had hip replacements, so we know what it's like to have to accommodate painful, not being able to get into certain postures that you might not want to when having a sexual experience that would be enjoyable, but
Yeah.
how to move and accommodate in order to relieve the pain or the disability or whatever. And this is another aspect of for a lot of older women, and I think perhaps why a lot of women and men, just going back to what you were saying, Sunday, to honor the men, you know, give up on sex.
Mm.
But like we've said, it isn't only about sex. It's about pleasure and enjoyment and really, and sensuality. So it doesn't have to be about sex and chasing an orgasm. It can be that, again, like we've said here, that wonderful ecstatic physical experience that can come from even just smelling a flower, you know, like you said, Diane, putting a piece of fruit in your mouth and absolutely enjoying the succulence, the deliciousness, to use all our senses and be in different states. And this is where the conversations and the education comes in. So as we can move away from this narrow-minded idea around sexual relationships, and expand our thinking into something with greater awareness, and that we can receive, and to teach ourselves how to receive these things, ask and receive. So I think we've got many more conversations.
We definitely have. And I think one of the things that Gwen, you were pointing to there to me is around slowing down and very mindful practices, and that's what tantric practices teaches you. And I think one of the things that you know, I'm finding with you know, women post-menopause is often we're much more wanting to explore pleasure and slow down and the enjoyment of just like touch or feeding your partner, or just, you know, enjoying moment by moment. But I think it also comes back to what Diane was saying earlier about allowing ourselves to enjoy and have fun. Because I think as women, as also we've been taught very much, you know, we've always got to be busy, we've got to look after people, we've got to, you know, we've got to do the housework, the, you know, keep a business running, or whatever it is we do. And I think, you know, we're not very often allowing ourselves to slow down and take time to explore and have pleasure.
Yeah, actually, sorry, go on.
Sorry, no, I was just going to bring it on to one of the other points we've got, which I think is related to this, because we are going to have to finish up soon. But that is around, what are you longing for, yearning for? What do you desire deep down? And this is questions to the panel to share whatever comes up for them.
It's interesting because you say, what do you desire? And it's like, well, I don't know, because I'm such an in the moment person. There's a lot about that, just kind of enjoying the moment. So, for example, a while ago, I had a moment. There was a guy. I was at a cafe down the road. I live around the corner from the high street here, and it's lovely. We've got loads of cafes, great. So I decided to go and hang out in one of the cafes one day to do some work. And I was leaving, and this chap stopped deliberately to open the door for me. And we started talking, and he just had this real cheeky way about him, and I love cheeky guys, and it was just so much fun. And it was just this, we just had this just lovely interaction. It was really great fun, really great fun. And then a few days later, I took my mum shopping, and when I take my mum shopping, I sit by the checkouts waiting for her to go round, because she likes to go round on her own. And this chap started talking to me because I was reading a paper, and we got into this conversation, and his wife came along, and it was really funny. And she was like, what's this conversation? What's happening here? And it was really interesting, just the whole kind of, way it went on. Don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. It's funny the stuff that comes up, but there is this thing about just allowing, you know, yourself to be is okay, you know, do that.
Yeah.
And I think so many people don't, you know, because they, oh, I can't do that, I can't behave like, oh, I couldn't possibly, I can't, you know, you were talking about wearing low cut tops, Sunday, you know, it's like, oh, I can't possibly wear a low cut top because my décolletage does not look like it used to, you know, or something like oh, sod it, you know. No, actually, do you know what, you can look really gorgeous, you know. Just do it, you know. And because so much of attractiveness comes from actually just enjoying yourself.
Yep.
And just going, I'm okay, so, you know, let's go, you know, and have fun, you know. And it is, you know, because it's an inner thing, and that is incredibly attractive to people. Incredibly attractive. And I think that's where a lot of people say, you know, because I keep hearing this thing, you know, women as we get older, we're invisible, and I'm thinking, well, are you? Or is it that you're saying you're invisible, therefore that's what you believe, therefore that's what you project, therefore you hide, you know, you are invisible? I don't know.
Great point. I love that.
I think, yeah, and I think some of that society, like, you know, we taught that older generations go out to pasture, retire, do, you know, and some of it is, you know, what we take on, I think, as well.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say I'm very grateful that I've got parents who are still around. They're both 93. And I don't know what they do these days, anything physically. We don't discuss that because that wouldn't be fair. But I know that they were definitely sexually active, well, you know, at least well into their 70s, and probably a bit beyond that, actually. And I think it would be only in recent times that they probably stopped. If, you know, if they have, they may not have stopped totally. And good on them if they haven't.
I agree. That's brilliant. What about you, Sunday? What do you desire and long for?
What Diane was saying, you know, that spontaneous, those moments of connection with people in mutual appreciation and fun. Yeah, giving myself permission to. So today's been great, and that's, I guess, because this call was coming up, you know, wearing a dress. I went to a fire ceremony, which is a monthly thing that I do. So walking around on the land in a dress is very much what I used to do, but as a farmer, I would do it in clothes that weren't flowy and getting dressed up. And then this afternoon, I went down to the river and there was nobody about. And I've had a swim, and you know, feeling that the river water is so different to seawater or pool water. And there was only me. And what do I long for is capturing those moments of bliss that are all around me. So it's remembering that. So these ducks and ducklings came, I was laid out in the sun drying off, and 4 little chicks, and I knew one of them was going to nip me toes, and it did. And they were so close to me. I felt like part of their family. So, and you know, and the sensuality of nature being, it sounds a bit ethereal, you know, when people talk about getting into nature, and yet it's so powerful, isn't it?
Yes.
Feeling the wind, being conscious of the wind and the sun and the heat. I love it warm. Perhaps I long for living in a warm climate. To feel the sun on my skin, caressing my skin, not burning it, but just caressing it.
That's beautiful.
And I also long for an intimate, lusty, hearty relationship with a man, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, you know, with both of us, with our physical limitations at the moment, as early 60-year-olds as we are. So watch this space.
Oh, looking forward to hearing more Sunday.
Yeah.
I think one of my desires, I was just thinking as you were both talking, is a deep down desire to be met fully. And I think someone said this earlier. I can't remember what it was, but I was talking to someone about this too muchness that I think a lot of us are taught over time. Certainly I had this experience of many partners that I was too much. I was too sexual, I was too loud, I was too adventurous, I was too, too vocal. And to have a partner that completely accepts me for who I am and matches me and wants and desires me to that level of intensity that I want and need deep down is something that I really desire. What about you, Gwen?
I would love to have that as well. This being the solstice, I actually chanted in my beloved last night.
Oh, lovely.
As a sort of ceremonial act, because I am ready. I've had 3 significant relationships in my life, all very, very different. And I have been separated 6 years now, and have been in relationship with myself, really. And that has been what I needed. And that is very much about getting to know myself and having that deeper connection with myself, and clearing some of the memories that are stuck in the cell memory, particularly around, doing the tantra work around the root area, the pelvic area, the sacral area, the holding, and that went on there for me, memories of my mother's tormenting voice about what men wanted, and I had to be a virgin, and all these things, that I had to let all that go, and that took time in order for me to know what I want now, what I'm willing to take in. I took in men into my physical body when not for me, but for them. So there was a lot of having to release energy around that, so this time has been really important, and it's been like a preparation, particularly as an older woman, because I'd like to step into a very different relationship, like you say, Melanie, one where I was met, one where I felt freedom, like you're talking about, Sunday, and fun, that you talk about, Diane, to be able to just fully express myself and be myself, but I have a sense that I had this experience where I felt like my beloved was supposed to come in with me and didn't during this lifetime. But I have this other intuitive sense that I can call him in. So that is what I'm doing, because I'm ready now and I want to explore it. And so that would be what I would long for and hope for. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gwen. We're going to have to wrap up shortly, so I just want to give everyone a chance to just say some final words that you might to finish up. What how have you found this call? What have you learned? What are you, anything you want to say to finish up? Who would like to go?
Me, it's just been sparking and prompting lots of thoughts and memories, which has been really interesting, just sort of revisiting things in my mind as we've been talking together. And it's not about sex, but it was going back to your question about what do I think about my body. One of the most, if not the most profound experience I've ever had with my own body was when I had a hysteroscopy. So that's where they put a camera inside the womb. And the consultant was watching, because I was awake for the procedure. And the consultant was watching me, and he said, would you like to see what we've been looking at?
Oh.
And I said, yes, please. So I sat there, so they turned this big screen round, And I sat there in awe, and I just found it incredibly moving. And I still do, I still feel it. That was the home for my son for 9 months. And it was the home for 2 little ones who I lost, who were still around in spirit, but I lost them before they had a chance to land on the earth plane. And it was just an incredible experience. And and for that, I'm profoundly grateful to my body for what it was, and it's, just amazing. It really was beautiful. So,
Oh, I've got womb viewing envy now.
You too. Yeah.
Whilst you might not have a camera up there, I did some work really connecting to my womb last year as I was going through menopause to grieve never having had children. So I think this is really powerful work. That's beautiful, Diane.
Gosh, I think there is another call.
There's a whole new, a whole range of subjects there.
Oh yeah, you've opened it up there. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to my parents that they wandered around naked, and that I saw bodies, and that I was on a farm and saw animals reproducing. And at some level I had that. I'm just gratitude for the fact that I had this, almost this knowing, this sensing around sexuality, and that I've been brave and courageous and had the experiences that I've had. It's sort of cementing in me this call, the gratitude and appreciation for my sexual experiences so far, and my awareness around my sexuality, and the fun that I've had, and pleasure that I've had through that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You, Melanie?
Gosh, I don't know where to start. It's just been lovely, really connecting with you all and hearing your stories. I think I just saw a note from Francesca on the comments on the Facebook Live. She said it was just really beautiful to hear all the vulnerable sharing, and I think that's what I'm really present to, is how much, first of all, how much these conversations are needed, and how much it does take, and it probably shouldn't, but it takes being vulnerable and opening up, but because we haven't had these conversations as women like this.
I would also say to anybody who's listening live, thank you very much. I know there's been about 8 people, and most of you stayed the course. Thank you so much. And to anybody listen to the recording, the benefit of this panel is enormous. We are having this conversation, but in this short period of time, in an hour, I feel very deeply connected now to you, Diane, and you, Sunday. I feel I want to connect more. I was already connected with Melanie. So the benefit of creating these panels is enormous, and goes beyond just the conversation. They really deepen our sense of community. So I would encourage people to just come on a panel, just do it. Yeah.
And just to finish off, I just want to add, we had only scheduled this one, but we certainly don't think the conversation's over, and we will be looking to continue these conversations and maybe have different sessions where we go into more depth with a particular conversation around sex and sexuality, because I think this is such a needed and incredible subject. So I just want to finish by thanking everyone, thanking Diane and Sunday for joining us, and Gwen, it's been lovely to partner up with you. And let's all do it again soon.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks, Diane.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I'm going to stop the Facebook Live now. So.
And the